I never imagined that Christmas Eve would be the night I finally understood just how much my parents despised my choices in life. Standing in their living room, watching them hand beautifully wrapped presents to my brother Derek's children, while completely ignoring my own kids, the truth hit me like a sledgehammer. 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Tyler stood there, confused, waiting for their turn that would never come. Then, my nephew Brandon, Derek's 12-year-old son, looked directly at my children and smirked. "Guess you didn't deserve one," he said with a cruel laugh that echoed through the suddenly silent room. My wife Sarah's face flushed crimson with embarrassment. I watched my innocent children's expressions crumble from excitement to heartbreak in seconds. Without saying a word, I quietly gathered my family and walked toward the door, knowing that tomorrow everything would change forever. 3 weeks before that devastating Christmas Eve, I was grading final exams in my home office when Sarah knocked on the doorframe, holding 2 steaming mugs of coffee. The December wind rattled our suburban Ohio windows as she settled into the chair across from my desk, her nurse scrubs replaced by comfortable sweats after her long shift at the hospital. "I was thinking," she began, tucking her legs beneath her, "maybe we should offer to host Christmas this year. The kids are old enough now to really appreciate having everyone here, and we finally finished the basement renovation." I looked up from the stack of American history tests, considering her suggestion. At 32, I had been teaching for nearly a decade, recently earning my promotion to department head. Sarah, 29, and brilliant at her job, had just been recognized as Nurse of the Month for the 3rd time this year. Our children, Emma and Tyler, were thriving academically and socially. We had every reason to feel confident about hosting family gatherings. "You know how my parents are about traditions," I replied, setting down my red pen. "Christmas has been at their house since Derek and I were kids. They would never agree to change the location." Sarah sipped her coffee thoughtfully. "Maybe it's time for new traditions." Emma made honor roll again, and Tyler's reading level is already above grade level. "We have so much to celebrate." Her words stirred something uncomfortable in my chest. My older brother Derek, 35, and successful in real estate development, had always been the golden child in our family. While I chose education over financial gain, Derek followed the path our parents expected, building a business empire that impressed them endlessly. His wife Crystal, 33, and polished in the way my mother appreciated, fit seamlessly into their vision of family success. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Sarah glanced at the caller ID and nodded toward me. "It's your mom." I answered with manufactured enthusiasm. "Hi, Mom. How are you doing?" "Fine, Ambrose." Martha's voice carried its familiar edge of disappointment whenever she spoke to me. "I'm calling about Christmas arrangements. Dinner will be at 5:30, just like always. Don't bring anything except yourselves." Actually, Mom Sarah and I were discussing the possibility of hosting this year. We have plenty of space now, and the kids are excited about showing everyone the basement playroom we just finished. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. When she finally spoke, her tone had turned ice cold. "Christmas stays in the family home, Ambrose. That's how it's always been, and that's how it will continue to be. Derek understands the importance of family traditions." "Of course, Derek understands," I muttered, immediately regretting the sarcasm. "What's that supposed to mean?" I took a deep breath, watching Sarah's concerned expression. "Nothing, Mom. 5:30 on Christmas Eve. We'll be there." "Good. And Ambrose, make sure the children are properly dressed. This is a family gathering, not a playground." The criticism stung because it was completely unfounded. Emma and Tyler were well-behaved, respectful children who had never caused problems at family events. "They're always well-dressed and polite, Mom." "If you say so. I have to go. Your father and I are meeting with Derek about some financial matters." After she hung up, I stared at the phone, processing the conversation. Sarah reached across the desk and touched my hand. She seemed stressed about something. "Derek's always been their financial advisor since Dad's construction business slowed down. I offered to help them last year when Mom mentioned they were struggling with some bills. but she insisted Derek handles all family business. Sarah's expression softened. It must be hard feeling like your help isn't wanted. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was happening within my family dynamics. When I ran into Tom Mitchell at the grocery store, our conversation confirmed my suspicions. Tom's daughter attended the same school as Derek's son Brandon, and their families occasionally socialized. "How are things with your brother these days?" Tom asked casually, while we waited in the checkout line. "Same as always, I guess. Why do you ask?" Tom looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "It's probably nothing, but Crystal mentioned at the last school fundraiser that your parents are concerned about Emma's behavior in class. She said your wife has been difficult about family traditions lately." My blood pressure spiked immediately. What exactly did she say? Look, Ambrose, I probably shouldn't have brought it up. It just seemed odd because every teacher I've talked to raves about Emma, and Sarah's always been nothing but gracious at family events. Walking to my car, I felt a sick realization settling in my stomach. Derek had been systematically undermining my family's reputation with our parents, spreading lies to maintain his position as the favored son. The golden child was protecting his status by tarnishing mine. That evening, I shared Tom's revelation with Sarah while the kids played in the backyard. Her reaction was immediate and fierce. "He's been lying about us about Emma." Her voice carried a dangerous edge I rarely heard. "It explains Mom's recent coldness, the comments about the kids being properly behaved, the way she dismisses everything we accomplish." Sarah paced our kitchen, her anger building with each step. What kind of person lies about his own brother's children? The kind who's always seen family as a competition instead of a support system. Despite my growing understanding of Derek's manipulation, I decided to take the high road approaching Christmas. If my brother was spreading lies about us, I would prove him wrong through our actions. I would be the bigger person, show up with grace and kindness, and demonstrate that his stories were fabrications. Looking back now, I realize how naive that decision was. I had no idea just how deep Derek's campaign against us had gone, or how willing my parents were to believe his version of reality. The foundation of my relationship with my family was already cracked beyond repair. I just hadn't recognized the damage yet. Christmas Eve morning arrived with the kind of crisp, clear weather that made everything look picture perfect. I loaded our car with carefully wrapped presents and Sarah's homemade cookies, while Emma and Tyler bounced with excitement in the back seat. Despite my reservations about Derek's manipulation, I felt determined to make this Christmas memorable for all the right reasons. "Can we show Grandma and Grandpa my report card?" Emma asked, clutching the folder containing her straight A's. "And my science project," Tyler added, referring to his award-winning volcano model. "Of course," Sarah assured them, though I caught the slight tension in her voice. We had agreed to present a united front of positivity, regardless of any underlying family dynamics. I decided to arrive early, hoping to help with preparations, and perhaps rebuild some bridges with my parents. The familiar sight of their two-story colonial home, decorated with Robert's meticulous outdoor light display, brought back childhood memories of happier Christmas Eves. Martha answered the door wearing her best holiday dress, her silver hair perfectly styled. "You're early," she observed, her tone neutral rather than welcoming. "We thought we could help with anything you need." I offered, carrying in the presents and cookies. My father, Robert, emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. At 68, he maintained the sturdy build of his construction worker days, though recent health issues had slowed him down. "Everything's under control," he said, barely glancing at Emma and Tyler, despite their enthusiastic greetings. The contrast became apparent when Derek arrived 2 hours later with Crystal and their children. Suddenly the house filled with warmth and laughter, as my parents transformed into doting grandparents. "Brandon, my boy," Robert boomed, pulling his 12-year-old grandson into a bear hug. "How's basketball season going?" "Madison, sweetie, you look beautiful," Martha gushed, fussing over Derek's 10-year-old daughter's red velvet dress. I watched Emma and Tyler observe this reception, their faces showing confusion at the difference in treatment. Sarah squeezed my hand as we witnessed my parents' obvious favoritism in action. Derek strolled in, wearing an expensive cashmere sweater, his confidence radiating through the room. "Sorry we're late. Had to make a quick stop at the office to close a deal. Just bought the old Morrison property downtown." "On Christmas Eve," Martha marveled. "You work so hard, Derek." Crystal, impeccably dressed and perfectly composed, accepted compliments on her appearance, while barely acknowledging Sarah's presence. When Sarah attempted to engage her in conversation about their children's schools, Crystal's responses remained politely cold. The extended family began arriving around 3 o'clock. Aunt Linda, my father's sister, brought her husband Jack and their adult children. Cousin Jennifer came with her family from 2 hours away. As relatives filled the house, I noticed the same pattern, repeating warm interactions with Derek's family, polite but distant treatment of mine. During dinner preparation, I volunteered to help in the kitchen, while Derek settled into the living room recliner, with a beer, regaling everyone with stories of his latest business successes. Yet when Martha needed heavy lifting done, she praised Derek for working so hard this year, despite the fact that I was the one actually helping. "Derek bought us a new car last month," Robert announced to the assembled relatives. "Top-of-the-line sedan. He insisted we needed something reliable." I had offered to contribute to their car purchase when Sarah and I learned about their transportation problems, but my suggestion had been quickly dismissed. Now I understood why. Derek had already positioned himself as the family's financial savior. Ambrose got promoted to department head this fall, Sarah mentioned during a lull in Derek's business stories. "That's nice," Martha replied absently, already turning her attention back to Derek's narrative about expanding his real estate empire. The afternoon progressed with increasing discomfort. My children attempted to engage their cousins in games, but Brandon consistently excluded them, treating Emma and Tyler as nuisances rather than family. Madison followed her older brother's lead, whispering with him while pointedly ignoring my kids. "Uncle Ambrose teaches boring history stuff," I overheard Brandon tell another cousin. "My dad actually does important work." When I attempted to address this behavior, Crystal intervened. "Boys will be boys," she said dismissively. "Brandon's just confident about his father's success." As evening approached, I found myself helping Martha arrange presents under the tree, while the rest of the family socialized. The gifts were separated into distinct piles, and I couldn't help but notice the disparity. Derek's children had numerous large, expensive-looking packages, while I saw very few presents that could belong to Emma and Tyler. "Mom, did you need me to bring anything else in from the car?" I asked, wondering if perhaps some gifts were still outside. "Everything's exactly where it needs to be," she replied without looking up. Around 7 o'clock, I accidentally overheard a conversation that shattered any remaining illusions about the evening. While looking for the bathroom upstairs, I passed my parents' bedroom, where the door stood slightly ajar. Martha and Robert's voices carried clearly through the opening. "The gifts are only for children who make us proud," Martha was saying. "Derek's kids deserve recognition for their achievements and behavior. Ambrose needs to learn that his choices have consequences." Robert's voice joined hers. "Maybe this will wake him up to what really matters in this family. Derek understands responsibility and success. Ambrose chose to waste his education on a teacher's salary. His children reflect their parents' priorities," Martha continued. "Brandon and Madison are respectful and accomplished. Emma and Tyler are—" She paused, searching for words. "Well, they're products of their environment." I stood frozen outside their door, processing the deliberate cruelty of their plan. This wasn't favoritism or oversight. They had calculated this humiliation, deciding that excluding my children from Christmas would somehow teach me a lesson about family values. My hands trembled as I made my way back downstairs. Sarah immediately noticed my expression and moved toward me, concern evident in her eyes. "What's wrong?" she whispered. Before I could respond, Martha's voice rang out across the living room. "Everyone gather around. It's time for the grandchildren to open their Christmas presents." The moment I had been dreading was about to begin, and now I knew it was intentionally designed to break my family's hearts. As everyone assembled around the tree, I realized that this Christmas Eve would be our last as members of this family. The question wasn't whether I could endure the humiliation about to unfold, but whether I could protect my children from the full impact of such calculated rejection. The gathering storm was about to break, and there would be no shelter from the devastation about to rain down on my innocent children. The living room buzzed with anticipation as family members found seats around the tree. Emma and Tyler positioned themselves cross-legged on the carpet near the presents, their eyes bright with Christmas morning excitement despite the late hour. The sight of their trusting faces made my chest tighten with the knowledge of what was coming. Martha assumed her traditional role as gift distributor, while Robert settled into his favorite armchair, with his camera ready to capture the magical moments. Derek lounged on the sofa with Crystal, both wearing satisfied expressions that I now recognized as smug anticipation. "Now then," Martha announced, surveying the wrapped packages arranged beneath the twinkling tree. "Let's see what Santa brought for our special grandchildren this year." She reached for the first present, a large rectangular box wrapped in silver paper, with an elaborate gold bow. "This one's for Brandon." My nephew accepted the gift with practiced confidence, tearing off the wrapping to reveal a brand new gaming laptop. The room erupted in appreciative murmurs and congratulations as Brandon held up the expensive device for everyone to admire. "Wow, that must have cost over $1,000, Cousin Jennifer exclaimed. "Only the best for our grandson." Robert beamed, snapping photos of Brandon's delighted expression. Martha continued distributing presents with ceremonial flair. Brandon received a second package containing designer athletic wear from a premium sports brand, followed by a third box holding professional-grade art supplies that must have cost several $100s. "My turn," Madison called out eagerly. Her gifts proved equally extravagant: a complete jewelry-making kit with real gemstones, an American Girl doll with an entire wardrobe collection, and a tablet computer loaded with educational games. Each present prompted gasps of amazement from the assembled relatives. Emma and Tyler watched the proceedings with growing excitement, whispering to each other about which gifts might be theirs. Tyler pointed to a medium-sized package wrapped in blue paper, while Emma's eyes fixed on a box decorated with pink ribbons. But as Martha continued pulling presents from beneath the tree, the pattern became sickeningly clear. Every single gift bore the name of either Brandon or Madison. The pile of wrapped packages gradually diminished each one, adding to Derek's children's growing collection, while Emma and Tyler remained empty-handed. Aunt Linda began shifting uncomfortably in her chair. Uncle Jack cleared his throat and shot questioning glances toward my parents. Other relatives started exchanging worried looks as the obvious exclusion became impossible to ignore. "Grandma," Emma said hesitantly, "are there any presents for Tyler and me?" Martha paused in her distribution, looking down at Emma with an expression of cold satisfaction. "These gifts are special, dear. They're for the grandchildren who made us proud this year." The room fell silent, except for the gentle crackling of logs in the fireplace. Emma's face scrunched in confusion, while Tyler moved closer to Sarah, sensing the shifting mood. "What do you mean?" Emma asked innocently. Robert set down his camera and folded his hands in his lap. "Some children work hard and achieve important things. Others—" He let the sentence trail off meaningfully. Derek leaned forward with barely concealed satisfaction. "Mom and Dad have always believed in rewarding excellence," he said, his tone dripping with false wisdom. Crystal nodded approvingly. "It's important for children to understand that recognition must be earned." Brandon, emboldened by his grandparents' obvious approval and his parents' support, looked directly at Emma and Tyler with a cruel smile that chilled my blood. "Guess you didn't deserve one," he announced loudly, his laugh echoing through the stunned room like a gunshot. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma's eyes filled with tears as the harsh reality crashed over her 8-year-old understanding. Tyler buried his face against Sarah's leg, overwhelmed by the sudden cruelty directed at him. Several relatives looked genuinely shocked. Aunt Linda's mouth hung open in disbelief. Uncle Jack shook his head slowly, while Cousin Jennifer stared at my parents with obvious disgust. But Robert wasn't finished with his calculated humiliation. He rose from his chair and walked to the mantel, removing the framed family portrait that had included all of us for years. In its place, he positioned a new photograph showing only Derek's family gathered around my parents. "This represents the family legacy we're proud of," he announced, his voice carrying across the silent room like a judge pronouncing sentence. "The family members who understand what really matters, who make the right choices, who deserve to be celebrated and remembered." Crystal actually applauded the gesture, while Derek nodded approvingly. Brandon and Madison giggled at the drama, completely oblivious to the devastating impact their parents and grandparents were inflicting on their younger cousins. Sarah's face had gone pale with shock and rage. Her hands trembled as she reached for our children, pulling them closer to her protective embrace. Emma was crying openly now, while Tyler whispered, "Why don't they like us, Mommy?" The cruelty wasn't just about missing presents anymore. It was complete rejection, a formal declaration that my family didn't belong, that we were unwelcome in this house, and unworthy of love or recognition. My parents had orchestrated this public humiliation with deliberate precision, using my innocent children as weapons in their war against my life choices. I stood slowly, my legs feeling unsteady beneath me. Every eye in the room turned toward me, waiting to see how I would respond to this calculated attack on my family. Derek watched with anticipation, probably hoping I would lose my temper and provide him with ammunition for future family narratives. But I refused to give them that satisfaction. Instead, I reached for Tyler's hand, while Sarah gathered Emma into her arms. My voice remained calm and controlled as I spoke the only words that mattered in that moment. "Sarah, kids, we're leaving." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue or defend our worthiness. I simply guided my devastated family toward the door, while the room remained frozen in uncomfortable silence. Several relatives started to speak, but I held up my hand to stop them. "Thank you for showing us exactly who you are," I said quietly to my parents. "We won't forget this lesson." As we reached the entryway, I heard Brandon's voice one final time. "Bye. Maybe you'll deserve presents next year if you're better." I closed the door behind us and led my broken family into the cold December night, knowing that we would never return to this house again. The humiliation was complete, but so was my understanding of what needed to happen next. Tomorrow would bring a reckoning that my family would never forget. The car ride home passed in heartbreaking silence. Sarah sat in the passenger seat with tears streaming down her face, while Emma sobbed quietly in the back. Tyler stared out the window with the stunned expression of a child whose world had suddenly stopped making sense. "Daddy," Emma whispered through her tears, "why don't Grandma and Grandpa love us?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I pulled over into an empty parking lot because I couldn't trust myself to drive safely while processing my daughter's innocent confusion about such deliberate cruelty. "Did we do something wrong?" Tyler asked, his 6-year-old voice small and scared. I turned around to face my children, searching for words that could possibly explain adult malice to pure hearts. "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices about how they treat people they should love." "But why?" Emma persisted. "We always say please and thank you. We clean our rooms. I got all A's on my report card." Sarah reached back to touch Emma's hand. "Some people's love comes with conditions, honey, but ours doesn't. We love you exactly as you are, always and forever." The ride home resumed in contemplative quiet, each of us processing the evening's devastation in our own way. Once inside our house, I sat on the living room floor with Emma and Tyler, while Sarah made hot chocolate in the kitchen. The familiar comfort of our own space began working its healing magic, but I knew this wound would take time to close. "Are we still going to have Christmas?" Tyler asked practically. "Absolutely," I assured him. "Real Christmas is about love and family, and we have both of those things right here." Emma snuggled against my side. "I'm glad we have each other." Her simple statement broke something loose in my chest. Despite everything my parents had tried to take from us tonight, they had failed to damage what truly mattered. My children still felt secure in our love, still trusted that we would protect them from further harm. I spent that sleepless Christmas Eve planning my response while Sarah dozed fitfully beside me. The rage I had controlled during the confrontation now burned freely through my thoughts. Not just anger at the humiliation, but fury at the calculated nature of the attack. My parents and Derek had planned this cruelty specifically to wound innocent children. Christmas morning arrived gray and subdued. Instead of the usual frenzied present opening, we gathered around our tree for a serious family discussion. I wanted Emma and Tyler to understand what was happening before they heard different versions from other people. Last night showed us something important about Grandma, Grandpa, and Uncle Derek. I began carefully. They believe that love should depend on doing things their way, but we know that real love doesn't work like that. "Are we in trouble?" Emma asked. "No, baby. We're going to be fine. Better than fine, actually. We're going to make our own traditions with people who love us for who we are." Sarah brought out the presents we had exchanged as a family, and slowly, the joy began returning to Christmas morning. Emma's face lit up when she opened her new art supplies. Tyler squealed with delight over his building block set. The laughter of my children gradually replaced the echo of cruel words from the night before. The phone started ringing around 10 o'clock. I let the calls go to voicemail, but curiosity eventually made me check the messages. The first was from Aunt Linda, her voice tight with emotion. "Ambrose, I am so sorry about last night. What Robert and Martha did was inexcusable. Please call me when you're ready to talk. That wasn't family behavior, that was cruelty." Uncle Jack had left a similar message expressing his embarrassment and outrage at witnessing such deliberate meanness. Cousin Jennifer's voicemail was longer and more detailed. "I left right after you did. Several of us did, actually. Nobody could believe what we saw. Linda and Jack are furious, and so am I. Those children deserve better than that kind of treatment. Please know that not all of your family agrees with what happened last night." But the call that truly revealed the depth of Derek's involvement came around noon. When I saw his name on the caller ID, I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "I hope you learned your lesson last night," Derek said without preamble, his voice smugly satisfied. "What lesson is that, Derek?" "Maybe now you'll understand your place in this family. Mom and Dad finally see what I've been telling them about you for years." The casual admission hung in the air between us. "What exactly have you been telling them?" "The truth. That you're a disappointment who chose a dead-end career over success. That Sarah doesn't respect family traditions. That your kids are undisciplined and disrespectful." His voice carried the satisfaction of a chess player revealing his winning strategy. "Those are lies, Derek, and you know it." "Are they? Because Mom and Dad believed every word. They've been planning last night's little demonstration for weeks. I suggested they make it clear where their priorities lie." The revelation hit me like ice water. Derek hadn't just spread lies about us. He had actively orchestrated our humiliation, convincing our parents that excluding our children would somehow teach us a valuable lesson. "You used innocent children as weapons in your sick need to maintain favoritism." I used the truth to show them what real family loyalty looks like. Maybe if you focused less on your feelings and more on actual success, you'd understand the difference. I hung up without responding, my hands shaking with rage. Sarah found me staring at the phone and immediately understood that something significant had happened. "Derek planned it," I told her. "He's been lying about us for months, convincing them that we needed to be taught a lesson. Last night wasn't favoritism or oversight. It was a coordinated attack designed to humiliate our children." Sarah's expression hardened into something I had rarely seen. "They used Emma and Tyler as pawns in Derek's sick game. He's proud of it. He thinks he won some kind of victory." But Derek had miscalculated something crucial. By revealing his manipulation, he had freed me from any lingering guilt about cutting contact with toxic family members. The decision I had been wrestling with all night suddenly became crystal clear. I would not allow my children to be subjected to such calculated cruelty ever again. If that meant walking away from blood relatives, so be it. Real family doesn't require you to earn love through compliance or success. Real family celebrates your victories and supports you through failures without conditions or competitions. The phone rang again, and this time I recognized the number as Sarah's parents calling from Arizona. "Merry Christmas, kids," came the warm voices of people who had always treated Emma and Tyler as treasured grandchildren. "Grandma Pat," Emma squealed, grabbing the phone. "Can we tell you about our Christmas?" As I listened to my daughter excitedly sharing details about her morning with grandparents, who genuinely loved hearing every word, I realized we hadn't lost family last night. We had simply discovered who our real family was, and who had been pretending all along. Tomorrow I would make that distinction permanent. I woke up before dawn on December 26th, my mind crystal clear about what needed to happen next. While Sarah and the kids slept peacefully, I sat in my home office composing the message that would permanently alter my family dynamics. The words needed to be precise, final, and impossible to misinterpret. As I wrote and rewrote, the text memories flooded back from childhood. Derek pushing me off my bike when I was 7, then telling our parents I had fallen because I wasn't paying attention. Derek convincing them that my high grades came from cheating, while his mediocre performance reflected real-world smarts. The pattern of subtle sabotage and manipulation stretched back decades, hidden behind his charming facade. Sarah found me at my desk around 7 in the morning, still in my pajamas with several crumpled drafts scattered around me. "How long have you been awake?" she asked, setting a mug of coffee beside my laptop. "A few hours. I keep trying to find the right words to end this permanently, without stooping to their level." She read over my shoulder as I typed the final version. "Don't ever invite us again. We're not your punchline." "That's perfect," she said softly. Short, clear, and dignified. "Are you sure about this? Once I send it, there's no going back. Your children won't have relationships with their paternal grandparents." Sarah sat down across from me, her expression resolute. After what they did to Emma and Tyler, after what Derek admitted to orchestrating, I never want our children exposed to that kind of toxicity again. I sent the message to both my parents and Derek simultaneously, then immediately blocked their phone numbers. The finality of that action felt both liberating and terrifying. Over the next few hours, I reached out to extended family members who had witnessed Christmas Eve's cruelty. The responses were overwhelmingly supportive. Aunt Linda called within minutes of receiving my explanation email. "I've been thinking about that night constantly," she said. "Your children's faces when they realized what was happening. It was heartbreaking. Jack and I support your decision completely." Uncle Jack sent a text message. "What happened was unacceptable. You're protecting your kids, and that's exactly what a good father does." Cousin Jennifer's response was longer and more detailed. "I drove home that night feeling sick about what I witnessed. Nobody should treat children that way, especially their own grandchildren. Derek's behavior has been getting worse for years, but this crossed every line." The support from extended family revealed something important. Derek's manipulation had been more transparent to others than I had realized. His lies and schemes were working on our parents, but other relatives saw through his facade clearly. Sarah's family in Arizona was horrified when we explained what had happened. Her parents immediately invited us to visit for New Year's, offering to pay for plane tickets and promising Emma and Tyler the kind of unconditional grandparent love they deserved. "Those children are treasures," Sarah's mother declared during our phone conversation. "Anyone who can't see that is missing out on something precious." By afternoon, I had changed emergency contacts at Emma and Tyler's schools, removing my parents and Derek from any authorized pickup lists. I scheduled appointments with a family counselor to help the children process their rejection healthily. The practical steps of severing toxic relationships proved surprisingly straightforward. Emma seemed lighter, as the day progressed, no longer carrying the confused burden of trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Tyler returned to his usual cheerful chatter, asking questions about our upcoming trip to see Sarah's parents, instead of dwelling on Christmas Eve's cruelty. But Derek's family wasn't finished with their campaign of destruction. Around 3 o'clock, our doorbell rang insistently. Through the peephole, I saw Martha standing on our front porch, her face red with rage and winter cold. She was pressing the doorbell repeatedly, while shouting something I couldn't quite understand. "Ambrose, open this door right now. We need to discuss your childish behavior." I made no move toward the door. Sarah kept the children in the back of the house, while Martha continued her tirade. "I know you're in there. This is ridiculous. You're tearing apart this family over nothing." After 20 minutes of increasingly frantic doorbell ringing and shouting, Martha finally left. But an hour later, my phone buzzed with a call from Dr. Harrison, the principal at my school. Since I had blocked my parents' numbers, they were apparently trying alternate routes of harassment. "Ambrose, I received a very strange call this afternoon." Dr. Harrison said, her tone puzzled. "A woman claiming to be your mother called to report that you're having some kind of breakdown and suggested you might be unfit to teach." My blood pressure spiked immediately. "What exactly did she say?" "She claimed you were acting erratically, making irrational decisions about family relationships, and that she was concerned about your mental stability. She suggested I should monitor your behavior closely when we return from winter break." "Dr. Harrison, I can explain what's really happening here." "Oh, you don't need to explain anything to me," she replied firmly. "I've worked with you for 8 years. I know your character, your professionalism, and your dedication to our students. Whatever family drama is happening, it's clear that someone is trying to sabotage your reputation rather than address their own behavior." Her support meant everything to me in that moment. "Thank you for calling instead of just noting it in my file." The call was so inappropriate and vindictive that I was actually concerned for your well-being. "Are you and your family safe?" "We're fine. We've just made the difficult decision to cut contact with some toxic family members who were harming our children." "Good for you. That takes courage. If this person calls again, I'll be documenting it as harassment." After hanging up, I realized that Martha and Derek's campaign of destruction was just beginning. They weren't content with the cruel humiliation they had inflicted. Now they intended to destroy my professional reputation and personal stability, rather than face consequences for their behavior. But their desperation revealed something crucial. People who are confident in their righteousness don't resort to harassment and sabotage. Their frantic attempts to force me back into compliance showed that they understood they had crossed an unforgivable line. I spent the evening documenting everything: Derek's admission of orchestrating our humiliation, Martha's harassment at our home, the inappropriate call to my workplace. If they wanted to escalate this conflict, I would be prepared with evidence of their toxic behavior. As I tucked Emma and Tyler into bed that night, both children seemed more relaxed than they had in months. Emma's usual worry about whether she was being good enough had disappeared. Tyler's natural curiosity and joy were returning without the shadow of conditional approval hanging over him. "Daddy," Emma said as I kissed her forehead, "I'm glad we don't have to try to make Grandma and Grandpa happy anymore. It was too hard." Her innocent words revealed a truth I hadn't fully recognized. My children had been living under the stress of conditional love for years, constantly trying to earn approval that would never come. By walking away from that toxicity, I had given them something infinitely more valuable than presents or grandparent relationships. I had given them the security of knowing they were loved exactly as they were. The next phase of this conflict would test that security, but I was ready to defend my family against whatever manipulation and harassment came next. Derek and my parents had revealed their true nature. Now it was time for them to face the consequences of their choices. 6 months after that devastating Christmas Eve, my family had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. The toxic cloud that had hung over us for years had finally lifted, revealing how much lighter life could be without the constant pressure of earning conditional love. Emma was thriving in ways that amazed her teachers. Her artwork had become more confident and expressive, and she volunteered to read aloud in class with enthusiasm that hadn't existed when she was worried about measuring up to impossible standards. Tyler had blossomed into the naturally curious, talkative child. He was meant to be no longer afraid that his questions might be considered disrespectful. Sarah's parents had become the loving grandparents our children deserved. During spring break, we flew to Arizona for a week-long visit that included hiking, swimming, and endless stories told under desert stars. Emma and Tyler called them Grandma Pat and Grandpa Joe, and the relationships felt natural and unconditional in ways that highlighted how strained things had been with my parents. My professional life was flourishing as well. The Teacher of the Year nomination had come through in April, accompanied by recognition from the school board for innovative curriculum development. Parents regularly praised my dedication and empathy, mentioning how I seemed to understand their children's individual needs. But the most significant changes were happening within my extended family network. As months passed, more relatives began sharing their own stories about Derek's patterns of manipulation and my parents' toxic favoritism. Cousin Jennifer called in March with revelations that shocked me. "I should have told you this years ago," she began hesitantly. "Derek borrowed $15,000 from Uncle Ray 5 years ago, claiming it was for a business emergency. He never repaid a penny of it. Ray was too embarrassed to tell the family he'd been taken advantage of." Uncle Jack admitted during a phone conversation that Derek had pressured him to avoid inviting my family to gatherings. "He kept telling me you felt uncomfortable at family events, that Sarah thought we were too loud and rowdy. I believed him because I didn't want to cause problems." Aunt Linda revealed that Derek had been spreading rumors about my marriage for years, suggesting that Sarah was controlling me and turning me against the family. "I never believed those stories," she assured me. "But I see now how he was systematically isolating you from all of us." The network of Derek's lies and manipulations was unraveling as family members compared notes and realized how they had been played against each other. Several relatives expressed guilt for not speaking up sooner about behavior they had witnessed, but dismissed as family dynamics. Meanwhile, Derek's carefully constructed world was beginning to crumble in spectacular fashion. Crystal filed for divorce in early spring, taking Brandon and Madison with her when she moved back to her hometown in Michigan. Court documents revealed years of financial manipulation and emotional abuse that had been hidden behind Derek's public facade of success. His real estate business came under investigation by state regulators for fraudulent practices involving elderly clients. Local news coverage detailed how Derek had pressured senior citizens into selling valuable properties for below-market prices, then flipped them for enormous profits, while the original owners struggled financially. Robert's health deteriorated significantly throughout the spring. A minor heart attack in April required hospitalization, and his recovery was complicated by depression as he began to understand the isolation his choices had created. Extended family members visited him in the hospital, but they spoke primarily about their relationships with me and my children, making it clear where their loyalties lay. Martha found herself increasingly alone as longtime family friends distanced themselves after learning about Christmas Eve's cruelty. The story had spread through their social circle, and the community response was universally negative. Several church members expressed disappointment in her behavior, pointing out that targeting innocent children contradicted everything their faith taught about love and forgiveness. But the most dramatic turning point came on a warm Tuesday morning in late June. I was in my classroom preparing lesson plans for summer school when the office called to say someone was requesting to see me urgently. I assumed it was a parent or colleague, but when I reached the main office, I found Martha waiting in the lobby. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect appearance was disheveled, her makeup streaked with tears, and her clothes wrinkled as if she had slept in them. When she saw me, she immediately began crying harder. "Ambrose, please," she sobbed. "I need to talk to you. Everything is falling apart." The secretary looked between us uncertainly. "Would you like me to call security?" she asked quietly. I considered the offer, but decided to handle this myself. "We can talk in the conference room," I told Martha. "But you need to calm down first." Once seated across from each other at the polished table, where I had attended countless productive meetings, Martha's story poured out in desperate, broken sentences. Derek had been arrested the previous day for embezzlement involving his real estate clients. The charges were serious enough to warrant significant prison time if he was convicted. "His marriage is over," she continued through her tears. "Crystal won't let us see the children. All our friends have turned against us. The church asked us to take a break from volunteering. Robert's health is getting worse every day." I listened without interrupting, processing this information with mixed emotions. Part of me felt vindicated that Derek was finally facing consequences for his manipulative behavior. But another part felt genuine sadness for the destruction he had brought upon everyone around him. "What do you want from me, Martha?" "I want you to help save this family," she pleaded. "I know we made mistakes, but Derek is still your brother. Your father and I are still your parents. We need you to provide financial support while Derek sorts out his legal problems." The request was so tone-deaf that I almost laughed. After months of harassment, after deliberately humiliating my children, after years of favoritism and rejection, she expected me to rescue them from the consequences of their choices. "No," I said simply. "Please, Ambrose, I'm begging you. We have nowhere else to turn." "You had choices every step of the way. You chose to believe Derek's lies about my family. You chose to humiliate my children on Christmas Eve. You chose to support his cruel behavior and enable his manipulation. Now you're asking me to rescue you from the consequences of those choices." Martha's desperation shifted into familiar anger. "How can you be so selfish? We're family." Real family doesn't use children as weapons. Real family doesn't plan deliberate humiliations. Real family doesn't spread lies to maintain favoritism. When I refused to change my mind, Martha's breakdown escalated dramatically. She began screaming that I was destroying the family, that I was ungrateful, and vindictive, that Emma and Tyler would grow up knowing their father abandoned his elderly parents in their time of need. The sound of her shouting brought other teachers and the principal into the hallway. Parents who were dropping off children for summer programs stopped to stare at the woman having an emotional breakdown in the elementary school office. "You're just like Derek," she screamed as security arrived to escort her out. "Selfish and cruel. I hope you're satisfied with what you've done to this family." The irony of her accusation wasn't lost on me. In her mind, I was the villain for refusing to enable their toxic behavior, while Derek remained the victim, despite his criminal charges and years of manipulation. After Martha was removed from the building, Dr. Harrison pulled me aside. "Are you okay?" That was quite an intense confrontation. "I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine." That confirmed that cutting contact was absolutely the right decision. Several parents who witnessed the incident approached me over the following days to offer support. Word had spread through the community about what happened, and the response was universally sympathetic. Parents praised my decision to protect my children from toxic relatives, sharing their own stories about setting boundaries with harmful family members. That evening, I sat on our back porch, watching Emma and Tyler play in the yard with neighbor children. Their laughter carried across the summer air, unburdened by the weight of conditional love or the fear of not measuring up to impossible standards. Sarah joined me with 2 glasses of iced tea, settling into the chair beside me. "How are you feeling about today?" "Peaceful," I replied honestly. Seeing Martha's breakdown made me realize how much healthier our lives have become without that toxicity. Our children are thriving, our marriage is stronger, and we're building relationships with people who actually value us. Any regrets about walking away? None whatsoever. The only regret I have is that it took me so long to recognize the pattern and protect our family from it. As the sun set behind our suburban neighborhood, I reflected on the journey from that devastating Christmas Eve to this moment of quiet contentment. The reckoning wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about natural consequences finally catching up with people who had spent years hurting others without accountability. Derek would face legal consequences for his criminal behavior. My parents would experience the isolation that comes from driving away family members with cruelty and favoritism. But most importantly, my children would grow up understanding that love shouldn't come with conditions, and that sometimes walking away from toxicity is the bravest choice you can make. The reckoning was complete, but the real victory was just beginning. 1 year after that devastating Christmas Eve, our family gathered around our own tree, in our own living room, creating traditions built on love rather than obligation. Emma, now 9, carefully arranged the ornaments she had made in art class, while Tyler, 7, tested the twinkling lights with scientific curiosity. The joy in our home felt authentic and unforced, unmarked by the tension that had clouded previous holiday seasons. "Dad, can you tell us the story about last Christmas again?" Emma asked as she hung a paper snowflake on a low branch. It had become something of a family tradition, this annual retelling of how we learned to choose love over toxicity. Not as a tale of bitterness or revenge, but as a story about courage and the importance of protecting what matters most. Once upon a time, I began settling into my favorite armchair, while Sarah curled up on the sofa. There was a family who thought they had to earn love by being perfect, but they discovered that real love doesn't work that way. Tyler climbed onto my lap, a privilege he had claimed during these storytelling sessions. And then, the mean people tried to hurt us, but we were stronger than their meanness. That's right, buddy. We learned that walking away from people who hurt us isn't giving up. It's protecting ourselves so we can love the people who deserve our love. Over the past year, our lives had continued to flourish in ways that confirmed the wisdom of our decision. The extended family reunion organized by Aunt Linda in August had been a revelation. Without the toxic dynamics created by Derek and my parents, the gathering felt genuinely warm and inclusive. Cousins who had seemed distant before revealed that they had always wanted closer relationships, but had been discouraged by Derek's manipulation. "I always liked your family," Cousin Jennifer confided during that reunion. "But Derek kept telling us you thought we were beneath you, that Sarah felt uncomfortable around us because we were too blue-collar. I believed him, because I didn't want to intrude where I wasn't wanted." Uncle Jack organized monthly family dinners at his house, creating the kind of extended family bonds that had been missing for years. Emma and Tyler developed close relationships with their second cousins, enjoying the kind of unconditional acceptance that had been denied them by their paternal grandparents. My professional recognition continued to grow throughout the year. The Teacher of the Year award led to opportunities for curriculum development and mentoring new educators. The school board established a scholarship fund in my name, supporting students from challenging family backgrounds who demonstrated academic excellence despite personal obstacles. But the most meaningful recognition came from my students and their families. Parents regularly mentioned how I seemed to understand children who were struggling with family dynamics, how I created classroom environments where every child felt valued regardless of their home situations. Mr. Ambrose helped my daughter understand that she wasn't responsible for her parents' divorce. One mother told me during a conference. He taught her that her worth doesn't depend on other people's problems. Sarah's support group for people dealing with family rejection had grown to include 15 regular members. The stories they shared revealed how common these struggles were, how many people suffered in silence, rather than risk being labeled as ungrateful or selfish for setting boundaries with toxic relatives. "Your story gives people hope," Sarah told me after one particularly emotional group session. "When they hear how much better our children are doing after we stopped exposing them to conditional love, it gives them permission to protect their own families." Derek's legal troubles had resulted in a 2-year prison sentence for embezzlement and fraud. Crystal had obtained a restraining order after he attempted to manipulate Brandon and Madison against her during custody visits. His children were in therapy, learning to process the emotional manipulation they had experienced and beginning to understand healthy relationship dynamics. Brandon, now 13, had reached out through Crystal to apologize for his behavior on Christmas Eve. The letter he sent was clearly written with adult supervision, but the sentiment seemed genuine. "I know what I said to Emma, and Tyler was mean," he wrote. "My dad taught me that being cruel made me strong, but my therapist says that's not true. Strong people are kind to others, especially little kids who can't defend themselves." Crystal had remarried a man who treated her children with genuine respect and affection. According to Aunt Linda, who maintained contact with Derek's ex-wife Brandon, and Madison were thriving in their new environment, discovering what healthy family dynamics actually looked like. Robert's health had stabilized somewhat, but his emotional state remained fragile. He spent most of his time alone, having alienated the few friends who had tried to maintain relationships despite his choices. Martha cared for him with dutiful resignation, but their isolation was profound and seemingly permanent. Several family members had attempted to encourage them to reach out with genuine apologies, but their pride prevented any meaningful acknowledgement of their mistakes. They remained convinced that I was the one who had destroyed the family by overreacting to what they still characterized as a small misunderstanding. The saddest part, Aunt Linda told me during one of our phone conversations, is that they're missing out on watching Emma and Tyler grow up. Those children are amazing, and your parents are choosing pride over love. Their choice, I replied simply. I offered them the opportunity to be part of our lives. They chose favoritism and cruelty instead. As Christmas approached this year, I found myself reflecting on the profound changes that one evening of devastating honesty had created. By showing us exactly who they were, my parents, and Derek had freed us from years of trying to earn love that would never be freely given. Emma's confidence had blossomed throughout the year. Her artwork won recognition in a statewide contest, and she performed a solo in the school's holiday concert without the anxiety that had previously plagued her public appearances. When I asked what had changed, she gave me an answer that perfectly encapsulated our family's transformation. "I stopped worrying about being good enough for people who wouldn't love me anyway," she said with 9-year-old wisdom. "Now, I can just be myself." Tyler had developed into the natural comedian. He was meant to be entertaining family gatherings with jokes and stories that kept everyone laughing. His teachers regularly commented on his kindness toward classmates, particularly children who seemed lonely or left out. Sarah's nursing career had advanced as well. Her supervisor recommended her for a leadership position, citing her exceptional empathy and ability to support families during difficult times. "You understand what it means to protect people you love," her boss explained. "That translates into extraordinary patient care." On this Christmas Eve, as we prepared for bed after our own celebration, I tucked Emma and Tyler in with a sense of profound gratitude. Not for the pain we had endured, but for the strength it had revealed and the clarity it had provided. "Dad," Tyler said as I kissed his forehead, "I'm glad we're not sad anymore about mean people." "Me too, buddy. We learned something important, didn't we?" "That love is supposed to feel good." Emma chimed in from her bed. "And if it doesn't feel good, it's not really love." Their simple understanding of complex emotional truths filled me with pride and peace. They would grow up knowing their worth wasn't negotiable, that healthy relationships required mutual respect, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to treat you well. As I settled into bed beside Sarah, I reflected on the most important lesson this journey had taught me. Family isn't defined by blood relationships or legal obligations. Family is created by love, respect, support, and the willingness to celebrate each other's authentic selves. We had lost grandparents and an uncle, but we had gained something infinitely more valuable: the security of knowing we were loved exactly as we were, the confidence to demand respect in all our relationships, and the wisdom to recognize that some battles aren't worth fighting because some people aren't worth convincing. The greatest gift I gave my children wasn't protection from all pain, but the knowledge that they deserve to be surrounded by people who genuinely valued their presence in this world. Sometimes walking away from toxicity isn't giving up on family. Sometimes it's the first step toward building the family you actually deserve. I had discovered that love without conditions creates the strongest foundation possible for raising confident, compassionate children who will demand respect in all their future relationships. That knowledge would serve Emma and Tyler far better than any relationship with grandparents who viewed love as a reward to be earned rather than a gift to be freely given. The story of that devastating Christmas Eve had become a story of liberation, transformation, and the courage to choose authentic love over convenient family obligations. Looking back, I wouldn't change a single moment of that painful journey because it led us to this place of genuine peace and unconditional belonging. What about you? Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between maintaining family relationships and protecting your own well-being or that of your children? How did you find the strength to prioritize your family's emotional health over family expectations? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's support each other in building healthier family dynamics. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about finding courage in difficult situations. And if you know someone who might benefit from hearing about the power of setting boundaries with toxic family members, please share this video with them. Thank you for listening, and may you always remember that your worth isn't determined by other people's approval, even when those people share your DNA. You deserve relationships that celebrate who you are, not who others think you should become.